Analysing accounts receivable. What is accounts receivable? Simply, it is money owed to a business from its debtors. Why do we analyse accounts receivable? Accounts receivable are the lifeblood of a business's cash flow. Your business's accounts receivable provide the clearest indicator of the business's income, which is why certain stakeholders are interested. The first way you can analyse accounts receivable is through horizontal analysis, which will show you the company's performance over a period of time. It is found by using the current year figure and minusing the base year figure, and dividing this total by the base year. Let's take Toyota for instance, who have receivables of 17 and 15 million. Once we substitute these numbers in, we find that they have increased their receivables by 10% from 2018 to 2019. Another way is through vertical analysis, which shows the receivables as a percentage of a base figure. On the balance sheet, this figure is total assets, and on the income statement it is net sales. For example, Cochlear had 3 billion in accounts receivable and total assets of 100 billion. Once we substitute these figures in, we find that 3% of their net sales is accounted for by their accounts receivable. Next, we look at the accounts receivable turnover ratio, which compares the receivables to credit sales, showing how many times a company will collect their accounts receivable. This figure is calculated by dividing net credit sales by average accounts receivable. Let's use Caltex, which have 1 million in accounts receivable and 5.6 million in net credit sales. Once we input these, we find Caltex on average collects their receivables 4 times per year. The receivables ratio is sometimes difficult to interpret and is converted into the days in accounts receivable turnover. To do this, we divide the accounts receivable turnover ratio into 365 days. When we use Caltex's ratio, we find that it takes them on average 96 days to collect their receivables. Finally, we can also use the allowance for bad debts ratio, which shows the expected amount of receivables to be uncollectible. This is found by dividing the average of doubtful debts by gross receivables. For example, a business has doubtful debts of 350,000 and gross receivables of 20 million. When we input these into the formula, we find that the business expects 2% of gross receivables to be uncollectible. And that is analysing accounts receivable in 3 minutes with Dom.